But we're going to get started. This is our month number 2 of our leadership lunches. And our topic today is how to inspire and motivate people to join your team. Another way people like to say it's recruiting. I'm not a big fan of the word recruiting, especially in the faith space, because we want to mobilize people to activate their faith in what God's doing. So I'm going to say a quick prayer, and we're going to jump into our topics and be done on time. And let's get started this morning. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity you give us to serve. We thank you that we get to be a part of what you're doing in reaching people and building lives. Lord, I thank you for each one of these leaders that are here today. I pray your blessing upon them, that you would just continue to use them, strengthen them, and let this be a great weekend. We pray that lives will continue to be changed. People will continue to find you, Jesus. And we thank you. We get to be a part of that in Jesus' name. Amen. So each month, I'm going to take a few questions from the team. So if you've got questions, just general leadership questions that you want to ask, I want to invite you to email those to Johanna, Johanna K. And Johanna, if you would just type that in the chat there, your email address, and you can do that. So I've got a couple questions I want to answer. It was fun to see some of these come through and be able to address these at the beginning. I want to make sure I'm getting the information you guys want each month. And the first question was, and I thought this was good because I get this a lot, well, this is just my personality. This is what my DISC profile says I am. So that's okay, right? So I'm just a high D. That's why I'm so demanding. That's why I just bulldoze over people. And you'll hear me reference this, our Growth Track. We've started talking about Growth Track, about your DISC profile and spiritual gifts assessment. And here's one of the phrases I say to people all the time. Personality does not excuse behavior. Personality does not excuse behavior. Personality is also not an indicator for performance. So just because you're a high I and you like to have fun, that doesn't mean we don't still have expectations for you to get a job done, to get things done. If you're a high D, remember people are involved. It's not okay to just run over them. You got to stop. Remember there's people involved. The C's, it's okay if it's not just perfect. It's okay to move forward with things. Your S's, I know we want to be steady. I know we want to make sure everyone's on board, but sometimes we just got to move and we got to go. And so it requires every element of the personality profile to be a part of a team. A healthy team has all of those represented at the table. But personality is not an excuse for behavior. The other one that I got quite a few times was some sort of resource or book recommendation. What do you recommend for new leaders? If you could only recommend one book, what's the top 3 things you recommend? And here's and you're going to hear me probably repeat this almost every single month this year. I really believe this. The greatest thing a leader can do to improve him or herself is one simple thing, and it's something that everybody can do, and that is work on their emotional intelligence. I talked about this last month. Our team is walking through Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a $20 investment. You take a short little quiz, you read the first 4 chapters, and you pick a couple strategies to work on throughout it. And so I want to strongly encourage you, if you haven't done this, if you're sitting here and you're going, oh, I know I'm pretty socially aware, I'm self-aware, I'm going to actually say you're probably not as aware as you think you are. And I'm speaking from experience, because when I took the emotional intelligence assessment, I realized I had some areas I really needed to work on. And it was fun to get into that for me. And actually 8 months later, take the assessment, have improved about 8 points on that assessment. So this is something you can actually do and work on. I just had a meeting last week with a young man who's wanting to get into ministry. And he's asking me, hey, what can I do about this? What should I do about this? And I said, everything you're explaining right there has to do with emotional intelligence. And so the best tool I can put in the hands of new leaders, young leaders, leaders who have been leading for a long time, if you've never taken an emotional intelligence assessment, please do yourself a favor and go do that. $20 would be worth your time, your energy, and money, and everything like that. So here's what I want to do. If you've got access to your chat window there, I want to ask you a question as we get into our content today. What would you say our greatest need as a connections or groups team is? What's the greatest need you have on your team right now? Let's see just some of your answers. Just type that into the chat there. The greatest need you have on your teams right now. Anyone at all? I hear some keyboards going. I'm unmuting this here. If you don't have headphones on and you get going, I'm back there. We'll mute you. Don't have headphones on.
Yeah, I can't find it. The chat button.
Greatest need. Available staff each week. That's awesome. Available staff. So I'm going to mute everyone back there. Available staff each week. Getting volunteers committed. Money. Jeff, love it. Oh, that was privately. Sorry, Jeff, but I'm going to call you out on that anyway. No, I hear you. I hear you. Resources. Bringing up more leaders within the team. That's good. I honestly, that's been kind of the resounding theme. That's one of the reasons I chose this topic this month. Is the resounding thing I hear is, well, we need more ushers, we need more safety, we need more equipment, we need more. But at the end of the day, every church, regardless of the size of the church, and one of my phrases I hate to hear is, at a church this size. I've heard that. I've been at different sized churches, and that's a phrase, regardless of whether it's a big or small church. Well, at a church this size, we need leaders. We need people who are willing to step up and lead, but we also need people to get a job done week in and week out. And so that's what I want to talk about today, our role as leaders. My expectation for you, the reason I'm spending this time with you is because our role as leaders is not to get a job done each week. I want you to hear that. My expectation for you is to not make sure we have coffee, we have enough donuts. My heart for you is not to make sure that the schedules are full, although those are important things. My expectation on leaders at this level is that you're multiplying yourself into other people. That you're multiplying yourself into other people. We have right now across the board on our teams, we have people that are serving in multiple various roles. The great thing about that is people are getting involved. The downside is we have opportunity that people could step into those roles, but because we've got someone else in that role, we haven't taken the time to develop someone else for that. It's easier for us as leaders to go to the people that we always go to in the past because we know they're reliable, we know they're available, and we know they're going to be there. And when we do that, we actually hurt ourselves from developing, bringing people on down line. But as leaders, our job is to develop others to get the job done. All right? We see this throughout Scripture. Moses' father-in-law telling him, hey, you're doing too much on your own. You need to set up people in front of over tens, hundreds, thousands. David's mighty men in 2 Samuel 23, he had those mighty men that actually went and fought his battles for him. Jesus with the apostles. Paul, we often hear about Paul with Timothy, but I want to read this passage of Scripture to you this morning. It's so great. Paul talking to Titus, and he says to Titus, he says in Titus chapter 1, verse 5, he says, this is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained into order and appoint leaders in every town as I directed you. The word there is elders and pastors. But the idea there is Paul didn't say, Timothy or Titus, your job is to make sure that you're going from town to town and you're doing the work and you're ministering to people and you're pastoring people and you're leading people. He says, your job is to find leaders in each town for the task at hand. And that is really at the heart of what our role is as leaders, is to be multiplying ourselves into other people so that they are getting the job done. So at this level, if you are every weekend a greeter and you're the one holding the door open, you're missing the mark. And hear me, I don't want you to feel guilty about this. It's not your fault because no one spent the time to develop you. Hey, how do we do this? What do we need to do? Our systems, even our growth track systems, we're working on getting those streamlined so that it makes it easier for people to finish growth track and get involved. I got a list of over 250 people in growth track right now who have completed growth track, aren't currently serving. Yes, you can have access to that list. Just ask me and we'll work through that for you. But we as leaders need to be continuing to multiply ourselves into other people. When I was just starting out in ministry, my father-in-law, who had been a pastor for years, he shared a metaphor with me that I thought was pertinent for us here. And he said, Leo, there's a difference between a farmer and a rancher, and you see this in pastors' lives all over. A farmer can handle a couple hundred acres. Usually it's a family farm, handful of people, but everyone's got a job to do. Everyone does the same job, or everyone can do multiple jobs. No specialty. If you can plow, you're plowing one day, you're reaping the next, those kinds of things. He said, but when you look at a rancher understands they can navigate an entire, literally thousands of acres. They have specialists, specialty people working on the soil, specialty people working on the fertilizer. They have specialists in these areas. And because they don't have to be hands-on on everything, they're able to manage a much larger efforts, much larger work, and their yield and their return is much larger as well. And so as we as leaders continue to develop people, our job is to become ranchers so that we're not always having to be the utility player across the board, but to develop people and specialists in those areas. And so now, so I say all that to set that up to say, here's how we start to have a conversation with people about mobilizing them, about asking them to join the team. It always comes back to the vision of Element Church. Everything we do comes back to this, and that is where our job is to reach people and build lives. That's where we start. Everything we do, from our greeters to our parking lot, cafe, usher, safety, all of that is for the purpose of reaching people and building lives. And that is a big part of the why we do what we do. But for your area, you need to take that and you need to boil it down to a second level. So before you can ever ask anybody to lead, you've got to understand why you do what you do. The first step to mobilizing people is being able to answer the question, why is this important? All right. Too often we start with what? Would you like to be a greeter? Hey, man, you should lead a small group. Hey, are you serving anywhere? And when we start with that, we're actually starting with the what it is we're asking them to do, not the why it makes a difference. And the reason why is important is because people's biggest need is to feel like they're making a difference. They need to feel like when they lay their head down on the pillow, they're making a difference in the lives of someone in some way, somehow. And that taps into the emotion of what we do. You've probably heard me say this, emotions are what motivate people. If you want to motivate someone, you need to tap into their emotions. Facts don't motivate people. If facts motivated people, we'd all be skinny and there'd be no tobacco industry. You've probably heard me say that, all right? So yes, there's a need for 30 ushers. We need, for the team to be full, we have 30 open slots. That's great, but that's really not moving anyone. If that's all they ever get from you, it's really not moving anyone, inspiring anyone, motivating them, and to be active and into the ministry. So you have to start with the why. Why do we need? Let's just take ushers for a minute. Let me do this. Why do we need ushers? A lot of people, your typical response is, well, someone's got to hand the buckets out. Someone's got to pick up the spill when the coffee spills in the auditorium and all of that stuff. And those are all things that ushers do, but that's not why ushers exist. Ushers, in America today, 80% of America's churches are under 200. 97% of America's churches are under 1,000. So our ushers become just another level. Our parking lot gets us. I heard Nolan share this past week with our E-teams about why parking lot is important. It's that first smiling face. He did such a great job casting vision for why the parking lot. It's not so they can find a parking spot. It's not so that someone's out there and they know they're in the right spot. It's so that they get a smile from the very minute they turn on property here, because that experience is going to help someone get closer. It's going to help reduce the anxiety for that first-time guest, for that visitor, as they walk through the door, and they're gonna think, okay, someone cared enough to stand out there and wave me up. The ushers, think about this, the first time you walk into a 900-seat auditorium, and your largest church you've ever been at, maybe 150, 175, you're kind of looking around and you're going, oh man, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if so what is happening there is their anxiety levels growing. The devil is doing everything he can to say, this isn't the right spot for you. You need to get out of here, leave while you can. Our ushers become another level of helping reach people. Our ushers help become hosts where someone sits down and they get a smiling face one more time. Hey, so glad you're here this morning. You can introduce yourself. You get a smile, shake their hand. Yes, we're going to help you find a seat once the crowd gets packed at 9:30. Yes, we're going to help you clean up if you spill. But most importantly, we want this to be the best experience you can possibly have. And an usher's job is to help people have the best experience inside the auditorium they can possibly have, so that Pastor Nathan and all the work him and his team have done, the minute worship starts, that person, barriers are down, the walls are torn aside. They're not focusing on the 900 other people there. Their eyes get focused on God. So they get to help tear that down. So why is your area important? Not just what do you do? Why does it matter? Why do we give away thousands and thousands of dollars in coffee every week? Why do we do small groups? That is probably your first action step after this week is to really process as a leader. Why does it matter and really work this through with your team. Have a great answer. Why do greeters matter? It's not so people that look lost can find their way around. It's not so people just get a smiling face. The smiling face is how and what. Why is so that we help them meet Jesus, and how we do that makes a difference. All right. So process. You've got to start with the why. If you start with anything else other than the why, you're going to have a very hard time motivating people and mobilizing people to join your team. All right. So it's got to start with why. So once you've got the why, once you know why you do what you do, then the next thing you have to do is you actually have to have a conversation. All right. So mobilizing people, the next step is it starts with relationship, not need. If you need them, you can't lead them. It starts with relationship. If you're busy every weekend doing what needs to be done instead of developing others and having conversations with people, you're missing a huge opportunity. Well, Pastor Leo, I just don't have enough people on my team. I understand that. I get that. I really do. Okay, so I'm not saying that every weekend, every service, you have to be, but if you're ever going to fill up with people, you've got to start creating relationship. And so in a conversation with mobilizing people, it needs to be face-to-face. Not over a phone, not over a text message. Hey, would you be willing to be an usher this weekend? It needs to be face-to-face. This takes time. This takes energy. It's not something that just happens over time. So we have a great coffee bar every week. Hey, do you got 15 minutes? You could sit down and have a cup of coffee with me. I have seen this play out so much better when you do it this way. So recently I had to re-energize some coaches for small groups. Our small groups coach system over the years has gone through so many reiterations and so many different tweaks and edits that it kind of became really complex, and I had to simplify it. And I had to go back to the why we need coaches. Why we need small group coaches is because our small group leaders need someone covering them in prayer. Our small group leaders need someone encouraging them. There's not enough encouragement going on. Our small group leaders help our leaders become better because we know life transformation happens in circles, not in rows. And so I need someone that can help me. This group it's too large. I need someone who has got a passion for seeing life transformation. And then would you be willing to help me? And I got 3 easy things. And I'm going to come back to what those 3 things were here in a minute, because it also helps when you clarify what the ask is, right? But you've got to do it face to face. So I had a small group coach that I wanted to have a conversation with. Hey, can we just do it over the phone? And I said, listen, I'll work whatever I have to on my schedule to do it, because it was important enough to me that I wanted them to hear my heart. So much communication comes through nonverbal. So much communication comes from being able to hear and see the heart of what the ask is. I said, listen, whatever I got to do, let's do it. So we scheduled something. It was 8:30 on a Saturday night. We went out to dinner after service. I wanted to do that face to face with the individual, because I knew it's a couple things there. Your ability to ask and for them to hear your heart's really important. But can I get real practical with you for just a minute? All right. This sounds so manipulative, and it's not, but it's a lot harder for someone to say no when you're asking them in person. All right. It's a whole lot harder. It's so easy to say no on an email. It's so easy to say no, even over a phone. It's easy. But if I'm looking you in the eye and I'm asking you, it's so hard for people to say no, because in their heart, they really do want to make a difference. And they want to make a difference with someone who wants to make a difference. And so when they see that, it makes it easier for them to say yes, instead of making it easier for them to say no. So it starts relationship. It starts over that. And here's what I'm going to do. There's a raise hand button on your chat screen. Should say like raise your hand. I want to give you a minute here, and I'm going to ask my team, because this isn't fair. Pastor Kip, Miss Sandy, Miss Mary, Johanna. I need you guys to just hold tight on this, because we've been processing this as a team as well. What are some ground icebreaker questions you could ask someone to see where they're at in a serving process? So anyone brave enough here to raise their hand, and I'll unmute you and say, hey, here's a question. Here's a great opening question you could ask to find out where they're at in the process. Anyone? No, of course not. Oh, wait, we got one. All right, there we go. Unmute. Christine, go ahead.
I would just say, where are you serving currently here at Allen Church?
Okay, great. Where are you currently serving? There's one. Someone else? Bill, go ahead.
I would just ask them what are they doing to improve their relationships in church.
Okay, great. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Awesome. So let me give you a few here that. There we go. We'll get the echo out. Let me give you a few here. Those questions are great. Where are you currently serving? Those kinds of things, because you want it to be an open-ended question. As opposed to, had you said, are you currently serving anywhere? That makes it very much difficult, because now they kind of feel like you're being guilt-ridden. It's really easy for them to say, no, I'm not serving. I just don't have time, instead of being able to start a conversation. So let me give you a few questions that you guys can take and use this. So have you taken a spiritual gifts assessment? We are adding spiritual gifts and disc profile to our growth track. Step 2 of growth track is going to do this. And so they will be able to say, here's my spiritual gifts. Inside of each of those spiritual gifts, we've identified potential teams they can serve on. So if they've taken the spiritual gifts assessment, what was your spiritual gifts assessment results? Hey, what's your personality profile? Again, start with open-ended questions. I asked that first question wrong. Not have they taken. What were your spiritual gift results? All right. What is your personality profile? What's your disc profile? Oh, I've never taken it. Oh man, that's great. By the way, if you've never taken, Johanna, would you put a link out here? If you've never taken spiritual gifts or your disc profile, a couple resources here for you. Spiritualgiftstest.com is a great one. And then TonyRobbins.com/disc. If you don't know your spiritual gifts and you don't know your disc profile, please, as leaders, go do that. Share that with us. Send me those results. We'd love to see how God has wired and gifted you to do that. But it opens up a conversation. Hey, where are you currently serving? We assume then at that point, we assume the best in people. When we start with where are you currently serving? Oh, we just assume you're serving. Oh, you're not serving. Instead of are you a part of a small group? What small group are you in? It starts a conversation. So you do it face-to-face. You start with an open-ended question that starts a conversation with them. Where are you in the growth track process? Action step for everyone here right now. Here's where I really want us as a team to be working toward. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to start tracking this as a team, updating you guys this kind of information. Our growth track process is everyone's first step. So before you start with spiritual gifts, before you start with disc profile, ask them where they're at in the growth track process. Where are you at in the growth track process? Where are you at in the growth track process? Where are you at in the growth track process? Please start with that question, because what I want to see is we start getting people through growth track. If we can get people through growth track, we can get them activated. We can get them mobilized. We can get them directed in the right way based on their gifts and their disc profiles, right? So start with a relationship, start with a conversation, a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be long, 10, 15 minutes, right before service, right after service, between services. Find a way so that you're not standing at the door. You're not the one that's required to be in the auditorium for that 10 or 15 minutes. Each week, set a goal for yourself. Ask 10 people this week where they're at in the growth track process. Just ask 10 people this week where they're at in the growth track process, and then encourage them to get into it, all right? So start with a communication, ask open-ended questions to get the conversation happen. Make sure then the next thing you need to do is make sure that you communicate that they matter. They are needed. God needs them to fulfill his kingdom purpose, all right? Ephesians chapter 4:16 says, when each part is working properly, it makes the body grow so that it builds up itself in love. That verse means, I want you to hear this, if they aren't active in their faith, God's body can't grow. God wants them to be a part of what he's doing. Our job as leaders is to make sure that they do matter. We want them. Everyone has a role to play. We want to make sure everyone understands they've got a role to play, and they matter. They make a difference. They can make a difference week in and week out in the lives of people that are coming to have an encounter with God, right? Communicate they matter. Next, the ask needs to be clear. What are you asking them to do? What are you actually asking them to do? You're asking them to join your team. Would you be willing to serve one Sunday a month? We need a smiling face, man. We've got eyes. If you're a high eye, you're a Tigger personality, and you're great at making people feel welcome when they walk through the door. Would you be willing to serve one service a month and be a part of the team? Be very specific in your ask. Would you do this for 90 days? Give them an out. Hey, try it for 90 days. If you don't like it, we'll find another team. Let's find somewhere you fit. That also gives you a chance if you get someone in the room that goes, oh, wow, this guy's terrible at greeting people. We need to move them on. That's a different conversation. Go back to last month on how to have difficult conversations. So be very specific. So communicate they matter. Be very specific on what the ask is. Start asking people if they will give you 90 days and give you one service a month. If you can get 30 people to give you one service a month, your team is going to feel the pressure laid off of them because you're going to have more people available. Sit one, serve one. That's all we ask people. Sit one, serve one. If you come to 5 o'clock, sit at 6:30. If you serve at 6:30, if you serve it at 6:30, sit at 5 o'clock. Let me follow this very quick rabbit trail. I'm going to ask my team. Our 9:30 and even our 11:15 services are getting very, very, very full. We're at about 80% capacity at 9:30. Do your best as leaders, if we could. If you guys would not mind, maybe switching your service that you sit in potentially to be the 11:15 service, so we can open up a few seats. Anytime we add seats, God's add souls. Some of the ways we add seats is to get our butts out of them sometimes. So if you would be willing to work with us on that, that would be great. But back to the ask needs to be very clear what you're asking them to do. You ever leave a conversation, you go, wait, so what are they asking me to do? Be very specific. Let me come back to the groups coaching. Here's what I asked our groups coach. I had 3 very specific things I wanted them to do. I want you to connect with the leaders at least twice a month and encourage them. That's all. I want you to connect with them twice a month and encourage them. I want you to pray for them on a weekly basis. Please make sure each of our leaders are getting prayed for on a weekly basis. And then number 3, if anything difficult comes up, please make me aware so I can help pastor and navigate through that. I'm not asking you to deal with the difficult situations. You've got a full-time job, a life outside of everything else going on. And by the way, you're serving here for us as a group leader. So those 3 things, I was very specific. This semester, would you be a coach this semester for 5 people and do those 3 things? And can I tell you, I only had 1 out of 8 that I asked say no to me. Because I did these specific things. I did it face-to-face. I cast the vision, why I needed it, why it mattered, why it was important. I made sure that they communicated they mattered. It was important that they were a part of this. God was going to use them in this season. I had one individual that I forgot to ask, and I'm going to tell on myself because Bill's sitting here going, well, he didn't ask me face-to-face. And I ended up realizing that we had scheduled Bill to be a group's leader. Thanks, Bill, for being a little gracious there for us for that. All right. Second, okay, so next thing you knew, so you've communicated they matter, the ask has been clear. At the end of that conversation, you need to, in that moment, immediately encourage them. Encourage them that God is going to use them. Encourage them that something about them is a great reason why they encourage them what they're doing. The second level of encouragement needs to happen after the first week they serve. Once you get them to say yes, do your best within the next 2 weekends to get them serving. Don't let that iron go cold. Get them within the next 2. In the first week they serve, find something. They may have done a terrible job that first week because they had no idea what they were doing. But if they smiled at all, just say, hey, you know what? Your smile lit up the room, and I saw people smile back at you. That's just encourage them. They just want to know, did I do anything? Did anything I do this week make a difference? Encouragement becomes a huge, huge core value for you as a leader to be able to help people move on. So communicate they matter, ask needs to be clear, and encourage right away. All right. So my goal for us today, and so let me do this with each of you here. I'm asking you to multiply yourself. Find a way to work yourself out of a job so that you're not the one actually doing the work, but you're able to schedule coffees this week. Growth track this week, and I want to give you the challenge. I would love to see each of you. There's 16 of us here today. This weekend, ask each of us, if each of us asks 10 people where they're at in the growth track process and have a growth track conversation, that's 160 people that we can maybe potentially start moving through the growth track system. Where are you at in the growth track process? Oh, I haven't started. So here's what we've got. March 10th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I've got Growth Track Express. If they haven't finished, they can come that day and finish. 9 o'clock, step 1, 10 o'clock, step 2, 11 o'clock, step 3, 12 o'clock, step 4. We are going to knock out Growth Track. Don't let Growth Track be the excuse they haven't finished because they don't have time. We'll figure out a way. We are working on making ways for them to do that. So, so Growth Track Express, just start with the Growth Track ask. All right. So I'm asking you as leaders, let's continue to get people into Growth Track and do that. Childcare will be provided. They just need to register for that. We are going to provide lunch. We'll have some food at breakfast time. It's not going to be a full breakfast, but we'll have something for them to snack on throughout the day. It's a great opportunity to get involved. Okay. I'm going to open it up for some questions here. We'll do the same thing. I'll allow you to raise your hand or if you just want to type it in chat, we'll ask some questions. But while you're thinking of those questions, I want to give you some resources along this lines. One of the greatest books I've read ever that has really helped me in mobilizing people and building a network and a team is Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. Never Eat Alone. Johanna will have these out. We'll put them out with everything else as well. Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi is a great read. I encourage you to pick that up. It's a great way to grow your relational network in a very healthy way. Second one is Ready, Set, Grow by Scott Wilson. Pastor Scott Wilson is in Waxahachie, Texas, just south of Dallas, Texas. And for years, their church would hit a ceiling of 700 or 800 people. And he said he had a bunch of doers on the team. Everybody that was on his team was doing the job he handed them to do. And he said, it's no longer will I hire and pay doers. We are going to become multipliers. And their team set on a journey, and he shares that journey in this book, how they went about becoming multipliers. A great read, Ready, Set, Grow by Scott Wilson. And the last one, which is the really great, he says it so much better than I do. If you are a TED Talk fan, you might have seen this. Simon Sinek in his TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. He talks about why, how, what, and really gives some great real-world examples of why the conversation has to start with why. He's also got a book, Start With Why. You can check that out. So I'm going to open it up for some questions here as we get done here today on mobilizing people, those kinds of things. And if you want to type it in or raise your hand, I've got one here where people come and check out more than one area. Great suggestion there, Julie. We are, with our revamp of Growth Track, we're trying to make it easier to help people get into the process much quicker. I think you'll start to see our Growth Track process changing over the next couple months. We really want to streamline some things, how easy it is to get involved. Right now, there's about 10 steps for people to get involved, and that's a lot of hurdles to jump over. It makes it real easy for someone to say no. And so we were trying to really help streamline that in a way that really helps direct them specifically to the area, so that by the time we get to week 4, they're going, okay, this is the area I need to go serve in, and they can go have a conversation with that. Great suggestion there, Julie. Any other questions? Someone else want to raise your hand there? Again, how do you raise your hand? At the bottom of your chat should be a little thing that says raise hand. We can do that. Looking around here. Any other questions? Oh, come on. I know someone's got a question. I know there's some D's out here. What is a complete list of things new people have to do? I don't have time to get into all that right now. Basically, it's Growth Track. They got to have an application, background check, reference checks, interview, orientation. Depending upon where they're serving, there might be an initial 4 or 5 steps. So we've just got to streamline it. The application alone is like 4 or 5 pages. So just streamlining some of those things. We're working on that. Questions, anyone? Anyone at all? Okay, so let me just repeat then, because my hopes, my heart here is that you as leaders become active in multiplying yourself, working your way out of jobs so that you can begin to have time to have conversation with other people in your ministry area. You do that first by understanding why your area matters, what it is that God's asking you to do. Why is extremely important. You have to understand the why first. Yes, it's reaching people and building lives, but what role does your specific ministry area play into that? Secondly, start with a relationship. Have a conversation face-to-face over a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever it needs to be. Find a way to do that face-to-face. Some great questions. Where are you at in the Growth Track process? What are your spiritual gifts? How did you see that playing out in how God's using you, activating their faith? Communicate that they matter. Next one is communicate that they matter. Make sure the ask is very clear. What is it you're asking them to do? If nothing else, start one service a month for 90 days. One service a month for 90 days. If they'll give you one service a month for 90 days, come back at the end of that 90 days. Hey, it's working. It's not working. You'd be better fit over here. It's a great fit here. Would you be willing to sign up full time and do this now with us, one service a month? If you can get them one service a month. Again, guys, it'd be great if all of our teams were filled so we only have to ask one service a month. Wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to ask the same people every week, if they could be there every single week and they could actually have a weekend off? Yeah, we're going to get into healthy rhythms next month, and we'll come back to that here in a minute. So the ask needs to be clear. And please, this one, you can't – if you do all of those things and you miss this one, you're going to miss a huge opportunity as a leader. You have to encourage them right away. Stop and encourage them right away in that moment. And then the first week after they serve, find a reason to go up and encourage them that way. Let them know they made a difference. That's what they're looking for. They're going to put their head down on their pillow that night, and they're going to feel great because God used them to reach someone that weekend. The hands that get raised every weekend, guys, we see people every weekend come to know Jesus. Each of you play a huge role in that because we create this environment where people feel welcome. We create an environment that removes the barrier, removes their perceptions of what church would be. Oh my goodness, I can actually take my coffee into the auditorium. I grew up in a church, man, there was no way. There were signs, no food or drink in the auditorium. And so when we start to remove some of those barriers as a team, a good cup of coffee. I hate a bad cup of coffee. We have great coffee. Seeing families come and get, where as a family they get to experience it together. They can come get a donut before service. Those things make a huge difference in reaching people and creating a great weekend experience so that people can meet Jesus and their lives can be changed. And that's why we do what we do. So thank you, everyone. Next month, we will be, let me give you a couple dates, just a couple things here. Next month, April 6th, we'll do leadership lunch. I'm going to talk about what are healthy rhythms of a leader? What should a healthy leader's rhythm look like? Some of you just got heartburn and your blood pressure went up just from me saying those words. Don't worry, I'm going to give you some real practical things, just some healthy rhythms, how you can help establish you have the energy you need, you have the excitement, you have the brain power you need to be at the meetings, those kinds of things. So we're going to look at healthy rhythms next month. And I want to go ahead and get this one on your calendars. This is so important. We'll send out more information, registration. June 22nd, it's a Friday night, June 22nd from 6 to 9 p.m. Once you get people to the table, our job as leaders is then to develop them as leaders. And so how do you do that? So we're going to do a 3-hour, it's basically a introductory to coaching, how to coach others, developing others through coaching. I'm going to teach this. Pastor Jacob's going to join me. I want to make this available to you, how to develop others through coaching. We'll do a meal. We're going to sit there 2.5, 3 hours. It's a great, I walked our team through it here just about a month ago and want to get that on your calendar. It's a great opportunity, how to help people grow as leaders. And I want to equip you. I want to develop you to be able to develop others. So that's June 22nd, 6 to 9 p.m. It's a Friday night. Come hang out with us. We'll have some fun. And we'll get that information out to you. But I want you to go ahead and get that date on your calendar for you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're about 5 minutes early, which means you can, maybe you still got time to do something else before you got to get back from the lunch hour. But appreciate everyone for being here this week. We will post this video soon on our to follow up. And if anyone you know is not here, just watch or feel free to forward that on to them. Have a great week. We'll see you this weekend.